Should you evict tenants before selling your rental property or keep them in place? It's the question almost every landlord wrestles with. On the surface, eviction feels like the clean path, the clean option. Clear out the tenants, tidy up the property, and sell it vacant. But is it always the right move? Or could eviction actually cost you more time, money, and stress than it's actually worth? Here's the reality. When you're selling a rental with tenants, eviction feels like the obvious solution. Clear the house, clean it up, sell it vacant, that's best. But that's not always the smartest move. And in this episode, we're gonna cut through the noise to look at when eviction makes sense and when it'll cost you more than it's actually worth. In this final episode, we're getting into the last thought you may want to consider. Should you evict before selling or not? We're gonna talk pros, cons, a few alternatives, and how to frame the decision-making process. Before we dig into the rest of this video, I want to let you know that I'm obviously recording from someplace a little different than I normally am. I'm using some different equipment. You can see I'm using my AirPods today, and I had some technical difficulties that just made things challenging. I just want to point that out to you. It's also the reason that you're going to see me looking over here, because I'm looking at my notes because I had to place them in a little different way, which makes it hard for me to look at the camera, which is what I really like to do so that I can kind of make eye contact with you virtually through this through the screen here. So just so you know, that's what's going on. Let's talk pros. The pros for evicting before we get into before you sell. Let's start with why a landlord considers eviction in the first place. For most, it feels like the cleanest path to finally take back control of the property. Of course, vacant homes show better. Buyers want to see clean, empty space. Without tenants, you can paint, stage, and create the best impression. First impressions matter, of course, and staged homes consistently sell faster and for more money because buyers can picture themselves living there. A tenant's clutter or even their normal daily life can distract a potential buyer from seeing the home's real potential. Number two, easier access for showings, right? So no need to schedule around your tenants who are still living in the house or the risk of them refusing entry. Agents and buyers can walk through freely. This means more potential buyers can see the home, which can create competition and stronger offers. It also avoids the awkwardness of trying to tour a house while a tenant is present, which often turns buyers off just immediately. It's just not as appealing to walk through a house that somebody else is living in, and that's just challenging, right? And then there's a broader buyer pool if the house is empty. Most traditional buyers, especially families, they don't want a tenant in place. Vacant properties just attract more interest because people don't have to wait for the leases to expire or worry about inheriting some tenant issues. A bigger buyer pool is almost always translates into stronger negotiating power for you, the seller. Number 4 on this list of pros is higher potential price. With no tenants, no lease, and no restrictions, buyers are willing to pay more. That can mean a stronger final sales price, sometimes even multiple offers. And in fact, many buyers won't even consider a property with tenants in place. So eviction can sometimes be the only way to reach those higher paying buyers. So on paper, eviction sounds like a win. There's all these pros, but there's another side to that story. So let's talk about the cons of evicting before you sell. Here's where landlords often underestimate the risk. What looks like a clean solution can quickly become a drawn-out process that costs more than it gains. So here's some cons. The first one being the eviction takes time. In Washington, it's not a quick process. Depending on the lease, the courts, and how cooperative or uncooperative your tenants are going to be, you could be looking at weeks or even months. If your goal is to sell quickly, eviction almost always slows things down. And every month you're waiting is another month that you're paying, managing tenants, mortgage payments, taxes, whatever. The second con is if it costs money and time. Legal fees, court costs, lost rent, and turnover expenses, they all add up. Even a smooth eviction can cost thousands, and if tenants fight back or delay the process, you could be out for far more than that. Landlords often forget to calculate not just the legal fees, but also the time the property sits empty while you do repairs or prep it for sale. If it takes several months to get through the eviction, then you are likely to still have to do something to get the house ready to list. So now you've lost the rent during the eviction process, you're now waiting to stage and list it. All these things add up and turn in a couple of months into 4 or 5 or 6 months. Then you have risk of retaliation. Not all tenants are going to leave quietly. Some are going to damage the property on their way out. They might lose their deposit, but they're mad and they don't care. So whether it's out of anger or just neglect, holes in the wall, ruined flooring, stolen appliances, or worse, what you thought would be a fresh start for your property could end up with thousands in repair bills before it's even market ready. Hopefully that's not your tenants, but you've likely heard the horror stories of tenants taking advantage of the very tenant-favoring laws in Washington state. The fourth con is market timing risk. The real estate market shifts all the time. If you start an eviction in a strong market thinking this will work out and it drags out for months, you could end up selling in a weaker condition. That's a hidden cost most landlords don't even think about. Timing can make the difference of tens of thousands of dollars. So yes, eviction creates a clean slate, but it can also create bigger headaches than you had before. That's one. The market conditions is one thing that none of us can really know what's coming down the road. Things change, that's all we know. It usually never stays the same way for an extended period of time. Here's some alternatives to think about for eviction. First, it's natural to want the home to look good before putting it on the market. You as a landlord are gonna spend tens of thousands of dollars on renovations that don't actually move the needle on value, or at least not enough to justify the effort and time and money spent. So let's talk about some other options. If eviction feels like too much, there's other ways to go about this thing that might work out. We talked about some of them before. Option number one is that cash for keys. Offer the tenant some money to move out voluntarily. It sounds strange, but paying someone to leave, but it's often faster and cheaper than going through the eviction process. Tell them you'll give them X amount of money if they move out by a certain date, but don't pay them until they actually move out. Wait until that time comes and then give them the money. I'd be happy to give you $2,000, we'll say, if you'll move out by this time. That $2,000 is a drop in the bucket compared to what you're going to spend on going through the eviction process and all the pieces that have to come into play for that. Option number two is cooperative agreements. Some tenants will stay and cooperate if you're transparent. Reduced rent, relocation help, flexible timing. This can all turn into take the obstacles that they see and take them and turn them into partners with you. They've likely got some of their own challenges, and moving is probably a huge part of that. So come alongside them, team up, and work together to solve. Then option number three, sell it to an investor or landlord. Plenty of buyers, especially investors, are fine with tenants in place. In fact, some prefer it because they want the rental income right away. These options may not give you the perfect vacant and staged look, but they can save you months of stress and lost money. So how do you go about this choice? What's the decision framework that you should be thinking through? How do you know what's right for you? Ask yourself these questions. What's my timeline? If you need to sell fast, eviction is rarely the answer. What's my financial capacity? Do you have the money to cover the lost rent, legal fees, and repairs? What's the property's condition? If it needs major work anyway, vacancy makes it possible to do that, but do you want to do the work? Or are you just trying to sell it and move on anyways? What's your stress tolerance? If you're already drained, eviction might push you over the edge. It's going to be just one more thing that you have to go through and manage and deal with this thing and drag it on. There's no one size fits all answer. The best path is the one that aligns with your goals, your resources, your peace of mind. So take some time to think through these questions, figure out your ultimate goal, and build a plan that gets you to where you want to go. If you'd like some help to get that figured out, I'm happy to help. Give me a call, reach out to me. Let's talk through it. Maybe I can help in some way, but at least I can help you brainstorm if that's just challenging in and of itself. So, should you evict tenants before selling? Sometimes, maybe, yeah, but sometimes maybe not. It all depends on your timeline, finances, your tenants, your stress level. The key again is to make a choice with clarity, not pressure. Take an honest look at your situation, timeline, finances, property condition, stress level. This isn't just about selling a property, it's about protecting your future, your sanity, and your next step so that you don't have to drag this out any longer than it needs to go out. Lastly, as I close up this series, if you found any of this information helpful, could you help me out by hitting that like and subscribe button? And if there's someone you know of that maybe needs some support in this area, could you please share these videos with them so that perhaps I can help them out too? And again, always feel free to reach out. Leave a comment here or reach out to me some other way. All my contact information is pretty readily available.